recent event that I attended with NASPO. It was in Salt Lake City. We had like a reverse trade show, and I got a chance to sit down with Mark Fellows. And so I was very much intrigued by the solutions that Celonis represents across a wide variety of private and public sectors. They're into something called, we used to call it data mining. They've graduated to process mining, and now what they do is they dig down deep into the processes that every organization has, business processes, commercial management, procure to pay, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very fascinating. I was reminded of the old encyclopedia, World Book Encyclopedia, when you looked at the human skeleton and you see the muscle system, then you see the nervous system, then you see the circulatory system, but et cetera, et cetera. And as you peel back, the layers of the entity, you can see how they all interplay. So they reached out to me. I invited them to provide this lunch and learn. So thanks, enjoy the show, and thank you, Alexa and Jade. So
thank you, Bob, and hello, everyone. Welcome to another great Lunch and Learn. As Bob gave you the introduction, today we will have Celonis Incorporated here to tell us all about who they are and what they do. On your screen here, you'll see Jade Littleton. Go ahead and wave, Jade. Jade is the Florida account executive at Celonis, based out of Fort Lauderdale. Prior to joining Celonis, she spent the last 4 years of her career at Google. She's passionate about bringing new and innovative technologies to the public sector. There's also Tim Kutz, I believe, that's on the line as well. Tim, if you want to come off camera and wave. But Tim is a senior public sector value engineer at Celonis. Prior to Celonis, he spent 3 years at Oracle as a solution engineer, working with enterprise customers selling the supply chain suite of products. So welcome to Jade and to Tim today for presenting with us. Before I go ahead and turn it over to Jade and Tim, I just wanted to remind you guys that the session is being recorded for those who are unable to attend today. And if you would like to share the link, we will provide the link after today's session. All right, so without further ado, thank you, Jade. Thank you, Tim.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Alexa, for the great introduction. Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you. Thanks again for having us here today, and thank you for taking the time to join. I'm super excited to talk to you all. Obviously, like Alexa mentioned, I do live in downtown Fort Lauderdale. I'm a native Floridian, so really excited to speak with this crowd today. But just more in general, we've been having conversations around process improvement initiatives across the entire state. So I'm in Tallahassee all the time, meeting with the different agencies. I've met with Hillsborough County, Pinellas County. Tim and I were just meeting with Miami-Dade Water and Sewer, Palm Beach County, and more. So again, really excited to meet with you all today, and we can go ahead and kick things off. Okay, so for the next 40 minutes or so that we have together today, we'll first walk through some slides. I'll keep it short and simple, but really to tell you more about Celonis, who we are, and the problem that we're solving for our customers. Then Tim, our value engineer, who's also on the line with me today, he's going to walk you through a live demo, specifically of the purchase to pay process, so you can really see and understand how this would work within Celonis. And then, of course, at the end, we have some time saved for Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, make sure you write them down, and we're happy to answer anything at the very end. Okay, so more about Celonis. We've been around since 2011, and we have thousands of customers across every industry. Within public sector, we have customers as big as the Navy, the state of Oklahoma, and then customers like smaller cities as well. So if you have business processes that sit in a back-end system, think, ERP like PeopleSoft, which I know you all are leveraging today, or SAP, Workday, you're a candidate for Celonis. So what do? We're a business process improvement organization, and we do this with this new method, like Robert mentioned, called process mining. So we're giving you a real-time view of your processes, so you can not only understand them, you can measure them, monitor them, and improve them. So just to kind of give some background, the traditional way of probably doing it, is maybe working with consultants in a room to map out your processes, understand them that way through workshops. I'm sure this is ringing a bell for some folks. So instead, the way that we're doing this is actually using your own data. So Tim, you just want to click through a few. Oh, perfect. There we go. So the reason that we exist, and I'm sure you all can agree, is government processes are complex, right? You have people, you have technology, and then you have the process as well. So how do we make them all work together so you can really understand what's going on behind the scenes? Most of the cities and counties and state agencies that we're working with, that we speak with, they don't have a real-time view of their processes, so they don't really know what's going well, what's not going well. So what that leads to is, unfortunately, is a reactive state, right? So we want to get you to a proactive state to be able to do things like proactively measure for things like KPIs that you care about, or seeing what inefficiencies are affecting things like approvals, missed due dates. So that's really the level of insight that we're able to give you. So we're finding what's broken in your processes and framing the quantifiable impact of each deviation and inefficiency. And that's by showing you a full-time MRI of your process and then how to fix it. Okay, so on the left, you can see what many departments and agencies would like to think that their processes look like, right? So this one, that's a procurement example. It goes from starting to receiving the requisition, seamlessly converting all the way to a PO with no issues in between. But I'm sure, as you all know, in any organization, there's tons of factors that drive a high degree of complexity. And unfortunately, a lot of processes end up looking what you're seeing in that third column. It's essentially like what we call a bowl of spaghetti. I did mention we just met with Miami-Dade County a few weeks back, and we were talking to them about their AP process, and they mentioned things that they wanted to improve, like, okay, why aren't invoices getting paid on time? Can you talk to us about and show us where invoices are in the process and measure the throughput time of PO to invoice? So these are just some of the things that we can really help out with when it's tied to any process. Okay, so this will be the last slide, and then I'll turn it over to Tim to actually walk you through the demo. So just for an introduction of Celonis, this is really how we help out. So our platform finds and captures the business value in your processes quickly. So the best part is we're not ripping and replacing your current ERP system today. We essentially layer on top of your system and act as an intelligent orchestrator across your entire technology stack. So again, Tim's going to walk you through this, but it's really in 3 parts. So the first part is we connect to your systems with our system connectors. We have pre-built connectors already built out into PeopleSoft. And then we're ingesting your data from those backend tables that you have. And that's what allows us to show you that real-time X-ray or MRI of how your process is running end to end. So it's a holistic view of your process using your data. The second part is, now that we have that real-time view of your process, we're applying our own secret sauce to it, or what we call process intelligence, which allows us to find those hidden value opportunities and then how to actually fix them. The last part is taking action on them, right? So we've shown you your process, we've shown you the insights and different areas to improve on, and now we're telling you, okay, so directly from Celonis, you're able to trigger actions to fix those inefficiencies. And that can be simply as, send an email to this process owner to alert them that, hey, this high value invoice maybe isn't getting paid on time, or trigger some type of manual or automatic logic to do that. So that's really Celonis in a nutshell, but I'll go ahead and pass it over to Tim to actually walk you through this so you can see it live.
Thanks, Jade. To get started, I just want to take one more moment on this slide before we jump into the system to really hone in on this real-time data aspect. So as Jade had mentioned previously, Celonis will be connecting directly into your PeopleSoft systems, as well as any other external systems that you might be using, whether cloud, homegrown, on-premise, utilizing APIs. And so what this is going to look like when we actually jump into the system is what you see in front of you now. So the way that I like to think about what we're seeing right up front within our first view of our Variant Explorer is that if you were to go to anybody in a procurement department and ask, what does our current procurement process look like? This is that left side of the screen that you saw a couple slides back. And what that answer would probably be is something to the effect of, well, we create purchase requisitions, which then transition into purchase orders. Those purchase orders get sent out to a vendor. We end up receiving those goods. We record an invoice and then eventually clear that invoice. And my answer to that would be that it's absolutely correct. However, when you start to think about that, that's only going to be one of several hundred, if not thousand variations of a process, and it's only going to cover a select percentage of cases. So in the bottom right with Celonis, what we're seeing up front is that this number one variant, this most common occurring process within a procurement department, is one of so many variations, and we can see exactly what percentage that covers. And so this is all important to understand of what are we doing the most often, but what Celonis is going to begin to do is actually uncover what deviations or variations and bottlenecks are occurring within the process so that you can understand where inefficiencies may be lying within your processes and systems and where you can start to make the most targeted and impactful improvements. So on the right side, what we can begin to do is expand out and see different variations within the process. So for instance, if we look at the second most common variation, we can see a process starting with the recording of an invoice receipt and then retroactively creating purchase order items. As you noticed, we also skipped over a purchase requisition. And so what we're seeing here is a very common theme of maverick buying, where we're not going to be able to leverage contract prices that we've pre-negotiated. And so that brings into some of the effect of off-contract spend. Additionally, we can start to see things such as free text requisitions, postponed delivery dates, and partial deliveries, which can also lead into maverick buying or non-contract buying. And in addition to that, when we see these postponed delivery dates and partial deliveries, it can really bring in factors of supplier reliability, which would then go into our sourcing. What do we want to do with our suppliers? Where can we renegotiate contracts and start to find improvements both upstream and downstream? And not only is Celonis going to be able to give you this view as how many times specific activities are occurring, we can also start to go through and look at different metrics within our process. So what is the average throughput time between different activities? Starting to see that a typical throughput time between a record goods receipt and record invoice receipt is 0 days, whereas when there's a partial delivery, we see an additional 2 days added into this process, 1 day to get to the partial delivery and 1 day to get to the invoice receipt. Sorry, was there a question? Okay. Additionally, we can start to see what the automation of processes look like. I know tools like PeopleSoft give the ability to automate certain activities, such as automating a goods receipt within the system. And so what we can start to actually do is see how automated specific activities are within the system. Now, one more thing that I want to show on this page is the fact that, as Jade had mentioned, if we tried to build out a model of every single process occurring within a system, this could take days, weeks, months, probably up to years with a lot of consultant input. With Celonis, we can get a real-time and objective view of the true complexity of what processes look like within an organization. And so, as Jade had mentioned, this is our spaghetti bowl or our spider web diagram. And what I'm not trying to say is that we're going to be approaching this at its entirety right away. But really with Celonis and these targeted metrics of being able to see the most common occurring variations, what we can start to do is actually go through and find the most impactful inefficiencies and begin there, starting to streamline and slim down processes as much as possible. So with an understanding of what processes look like, it's also important to go forward and start to understand how an organization is approaching specific key metrics or KPIs. And so what we are able to do is put together dashboards with Celonis's intelligent platform that also will find root cause analysis automatically for an organization and start to understand how performance is occurring and where improvements could be made along with these processes. So as we noticed, there was one of our common variations of a partial delivery, which would be affecting our supplier reliability. And so if we think about what our KPIs are, we have an on-time and in-full rate, and Celonis will be able to automatically present this information as it's connecting into all process as well as metadata in that PeopleSoft system. And so we can start to begin to identify what are those core inefficiencies within the organization affecting our top line KPIs. And Celonis is able to recognize that there are inefficiencies such as partial deliveries, late supplier deliveries, and delivery date pushouts that are continuously decreasing this on time and in full rate. And we can see exactly what that impact looks like to our on time and in full rate. Additionally, we can see the performance similar to business intelligence, yet more extreme and more detailed of how our performance and how our organization is performing across different metrics, whether it's looking at specific vendors, organizations, or materials. And to take this another step further, Celonis will allow you to actually dive into these specific inefficiencies and see what is the root cause, as well as what is the overall impact of this specific inefficiency. So for instance, when we have an incomplete delivery, the system is recognizing that this is causing additional sourcing efforts, which is causing some of these delivery delays, partial deliveries, and additional added effort from those individual employees that are having to work to find new vendors to work with. And so Celonis can then start to identify what is the potential value that we can actually improve on, looking at those top level numbers. But in addition to that, we can start to identify exactly where this is coming from. So specifically, Celonis can identify if it's specific vendors that are delivering wrong quantities of goods, if it's a specific organization that is always receiving these goods inefficiently, or if it's a material that we're never receiving on time. And so with that, Celonis is giving targeted information around what is the actual impact, as well as where these impacts are coming from. And from there, as Jade had mentioned, we don't want to just present the problems to the organization. We really want to be able to come in and help you solve these inefficiencies and drive a more successful business process. And so that's where we will begin to leverage our action flows. Not only is Celonis connecting to the system to extract data and understand what is going on, Celonis has the ability to write back and actually cause improving impact to an organization. So with that real-time data connection, Celonis will be able to search all purchase orders with unreliable vendors, again, in real time. As these purchase orders are being identified, Celonis can then go through and analyze historic data patterns. By understanding what vendors are reliable, by understanding what materials are reliable, as well as which ones are unreliable, Celonis can identify if an alternative vendor is going to be needed. If there is an available vendor, Celonis can automatically write back, whether it's to an SAP system, to a PeopleSoft system, or again, to any of those homegrown systems you may be using, and actually automatically change the vendor to ensure that those materials are going to be received on time and in full, and then go through and send out a notification, whether it's an email, a Microsoft Teams message, a Slack message, whichever your preferred method of communication is, and inform the requisitioner that this change has been made. If there's no alternative vendor, what Celonis can do is then once again go in and actually flag that vendor and either contact that vendor to make sure that you're getting those goods on time and in full and inform that requisitioner, or what we can actually go ahead and start to do is build out a list. And with this list, actually create tasks for employees to go through and then impact your sourcing. Involve that upstream sourcing team and give them the ability to negotiate better contract rates, find new vendors, find more efficient materials that might work better for the organization. So all in all, what we're able to see is that Celonis can go through, starting with process, starting with the objective viewpoint of what is going on within an organization, identify key bottlenecks. From there, start to identify what is the impact of those bottlenecks to the organization's key metrics and performance. How is this affecting day-to-day lives of our workers? And then finally, be able to go through and not just identify a problem like business intelligence, but actually go through and start to create those fixes. Start to create solutions that will allow for more success within the organization and the day-to-day lives of every employee. Jade, I'll pass it back to you now.
Thanks, Tim. That sounds great. Can you jump ahead 2 slides, please?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to quickly talk about this slide. It really goes to show, what is working with Celonis look like? What does the implementation look like? How long does this take? How do we get started? So most of our customers, what they do is they'll pick one process really to kick things off, with key metrics that they care about and the different improvement opportunities that they're looking to make, that are impacting their bottom line. So this isn't any type of massive implementation, that takes years or even months, right? That's the beauty of Celonis, and I'll thank our direct connectors for that. So for example, we can ingest the data directly from PeopleSoft, and then we're able to produce that real-time view, dashboards, exactly whatever it is that, your organization, your department cares about. The implementation takes about 4 to 8 weeks maximum, so it's pretty quick. But what typically we'll do is we'll pick one process, but our customers will identify, a backlog of other areas that they want to target. So you can see, folks a lot of times will start with their financial processes, and then sometimes they'll move into other areas as well over time. Celonis isn't really a one and done. Once folks, begin to see the ROI of making these process improvements, they want to start looking at other processes. So that's really how we work with our customers today. And we can skip this slide, I think. We can just go straight to Q&A. Okay, well, that really wraps up the presentation. We wanted to keep it short and sweet, and just introduce process mining to you, Celonis, the problem that we're solving, show you an example demo. Of course, Tim went through and did the procure to pay demo, but we're process agnostic, system agnostic. So we work with all processes, all backend systems as well. And I will pause for any questions that folks may have for us.
Okay, so I do see one question in the chat, and it says, for goods or commodities, that this seems good, but how does this work for complex services contracts, construction and construction management, professional services, master IQ contracts? Of course, it's still required to check, but our procurement is more than for goods. And that question is from Bob.
Yep. Jade, if you want, I'm happy to take that one.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that I want to mention is that Celonis is not going to be forcing you to fit into a box. Celonis's process mining will actually conform to the different processes. And so with that, obviously there's different processes that are involved when it comes to contracts and services, things of that nature. And so while it may not be looking at things such as goods receipt, Celonis will be able to start to look at different KPIs about, or you can bring in different metrics around the actual performance of it, really bringing in all of that data and start to understand exactly how the different accounts payable may be functioning. So when are you receiving the invoices on those services versus when those services are actually being completed versus when you're being paid. So bringing in things like days payable outstanding and working capital. Additionally, with that, I know that a lot of these services also will start to require a lot of RFQs or RFPs, and start to look at the upstream effect of, well, are we getting the right amount of bids? Are we looking to the right vendors or to the right services to actually get this done, and start to analyze it in different methods. So it's not just looking at true goods receipt. It really will look at the complexity and the differences of all different types of procurement processes, as well as really any process within an organization.
Robert, did that answer your question? Oh, it looks like you did. Up. Perfect.
It did. I just came back with another question. So my understanding is this all kind of rides in the background. Nobody has to push any buttons or, do anything. This is just sort of I'm not even sure what you call it. Is there artificial intelligence involved, or how is this being done? The mechanics.
Yep. So what Celonis is doing is we have a team that helps with the setup, and what we do is we start to define with business users and subject matter experts, we get an understanding of what the expected process is, what are the initial goals, KPIs, things of that nature, and it gets set up on the front end through some coding up on the front end. But once that is implemented that is all on the back end, and then in the front end, it really is just pre-built dashboards that can be leveraged to actually go through and start to analyze and actually objectively look at the process. So Sometimes AI can be used or machine learning can be used. It's not necessary. Our standard model of actually deploying is through object-centric process mining, which is proprietary and unique to Celonis, where we basically look at objects within an organization, and then that will map out the process.
Thank you. I've got some people on the line who understand what you just said, so I'll leave it to them.
And I'm always happy to have any follow-up conversations if people want to go into more detail about the technical nitty-gritty of it.
Yeah, Irina, you're out there. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Bob. Yes, I was having not question, just some comments that we so the challenges that we have is number one, we have as a public entity, we have commitment controls. So we're not only dealing with the procure to pay, we're also budgeting. So we are pre-encumbering and encumbering the purchase orders. And sorry, Tim, you wanted to?
Oh, sorry, I was nodding my head and agreeing. Yep.
Okay, and we still try utilize all the functionalities that that PeopleSoft presents. Then we have third-party systems that we need to sunset and move the functionality in PeopleSoft, and also compliant to the county policies. There are things that are required from us to report on or to keep in a certain format. Plus, now we're implementing Bonfire, which is going to be our strategic sourcing platform, and partially will take care of the contract management. So we have so many moving pieces at the time that I don't know if it's maybe it's a good time to look at it now or to wait for the system to be more, I mean, like the end result after all the implementation and changes.
Absolutely. So I completely hear what you're saying, and I completely agree that is a lot of moving pieces, and I can understand the hesitancy. With that being said, one of Celonis's original use cases and one of the foundations of Celonis was for a system transformation. And so as you're migrating from these third-party systems, bringing them onto PeopleSoft, really what Celonis is going to be able to do is help with that process. So cleaning up the processes and identifying what are the key factors and the key data pieces that are clean, doing some master data management to actually understand what are affecting the processes, what are some of these negative processes, and getting that all set up so that way the transition into that new PeopleSoft is going to be as clean and efficient as possible. It's the idea of making sure that you're walking into a clean house rather than walking into a dirty room. And so with that, the beauty of Celonis is that we are, and with object-centric process mining, we are completely system agnostic. And so we're going to be able to then go ahead and help out with those third parties, get an understanding of processes, additionally support with that transformation. And then once you're fully implemented on that new PeopleSoft system for these specific portions, we'd be able to then just redirect our point from the third-party system into PeopleSoft. And so it would be a smooth transition and also make sure that what you're going through is going to be efficient.
But wouldn't that be a moving target for you as we're just in the process of implementation? And would that delay our process, or you can just do it in a parallel?
We're able to do it in parallel to any of those transformations. What we're not doing is going through and changing your system. We're not changing your data structure. We're connecting into it and creating a copy of that data and bringing it into Celonis. And so the moving target isn't too much of an issue because we would just repoint which connection we want to go based off of. And so it's actually something where we've seen it help out to actually expedite these transformations. Because as you're going through these transformations, typically a big portion of it is actually understanding what are all of the data pieces, what is going to be changing from third party to PeopleSoft. And what Celonis can actually start to do with that is identify for instance, with sourcing, what vendor codes have been used, what vendor codes are duplicated, which ones are unused. And so what you're then able to start to do is, instead of transferring, say, 1,000 vendors, Celonis may help you identify that you're only really leveraging 500 of them, and the other 500 are either incomplete data that you would need to update, or they're just unused. And so that way you'd have a targeted idea of, these are clean to transfer, these are the ones we need to update, these are the ones that we can just exclude from our transfer and not bring in that dirty data. Whereas previously, that's a very manual process. You have to go through every line of data, and it becomes a lot more complicated.
I totally agree with you, and thank you. It sounds very very interesting and very appealing, and definitely we will need to have more conversations.
Wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Would love to have more conversations around that. And we also have some specific marketing material as well as demos around that system transformation and master data management as well, if that would be something of interest in the future.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, there's another question in the chat. What comparable size public entities have you worked with, and do you have cooperative agreement? Example, GSA, Sourcewell, Value Point, etc.
Yeah, so I'll take that one, Robert. So we're on the GSA and NASPO as well. Is that typically how the county procures? What's the best way?
I'm sorry, I missed that. I didn't catch that. Could you please repeat that quickly?
Yeah, of course. Yep. So we're on NASPO and GSA, and Carasoft is the government distributor that we work with.
Carasoft, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you all leverage GSA or NASPO?
And yeah, oh yeah, sometimes. And what are the comparable entities? You mentioned Miami-Dade. So have you actually, established a contract with them? Have you done it with Harris County, Cook County, et cetera?
Yes, unfortunately not yet. We're in conversations with Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have partnerships with some of these really large system integrators, like the Accentures, the Deloittes, the EYs. They're all standardizing on Celonis to actually deliver their work. So that's another path as well. I'll just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, we don't have any existing business just yet in the state. It's in conversations and proof of concepts, and things are moving forward.
Yeah, and it's curious. Bonfire just went through a number of iterations of being. They bought Demand Star, they bought can't remember the other company that they bought, and then they too were just acquired and rebranded in a couple months ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago. So I know there's a lot of change going on in the marketplace, and to the extent that you can work with the solution providers to add value through their tools, that might be an avenue that we look at, because we're just starting with Bonfire in the next year. So all these things are sort of long-term journeys. Nothing happens overnight, especially with government. We operate at the speed of government, so you're gonna have to wait a few minutes. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Robert. We understand.
Okay.
Any other questions from the team?
So I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. If anyone on the line has anything additional that they would like to ask, feel free to come off mute. I'll just pause for a minute and see if there are any additional questions. And if they're not, we'll just wrap up. Okay, I think they're still processing, Jade, Tim, processing all the great information. So I want to go ahead and thank you both for attending and presenting at today's Lunch and Learn. Jade, do you have any contact information, Jade and Tim, that you would like to share with everyone, that if they have any additional questions, they can reach out to you directly?
Yeah, I do. I was just going to put that slide up. Let's see. I was being a bit... Tim, are you on the line?
I am. I can also share our emails in the chat if that would help as well.
Yeah, we can do that. But yeah, I was just gonna see, Tim, if you could just put up the thank you slide.
Yes, I do have that. One moment, I believe.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, so thanks everyone for joining. We really appreciate your time, your participation, your thoughtful questions. We'll put our contact information up, and like this is actually funny. I'm looking out my window right now, and I can actually see some of the county offices. So I am literally right around the corner. I know you all are spread out across, but yeah, I'm right downtown, so I'm happy to come in person for any further discussion.
All right, and thank you, Jade and Tim, for presenting with us today. After this presentation, we will put up the link to our Lunch and Learn series and add this video. And as you can see on the screen there's Jade's contact information, her email address, her phone number, and the web address for their website. Also in today's Outlook invitation, you receive some additional information that Jade and Tim provided. If you want to go ahead and take a look at that information. And thank you to you both.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.